and welcome to Who Does Rolls. I am your host, Mike B. Here we are again with something entirely different to the usual nonsense that we put out. It's a different pile of nonsense. It's a list. Lists are the lifeblood of board game content creators. They produce them like a baby produces poo in a nappy. It's constant, it's never ending. Mostly it's turgid and horrible. It gets under your fingernails and you have to clean. Oh, it's just a mess. Anyway, there's a lot of it comes out all over the place. Great big gaping jismy spews of it all over. There's whole fucking people just do it all the time. I'm on a rant. Anyway, so look, let's be honest. We want to get over 400 subscribers. So the only way we're going to do this is making fucking lists, apparently. I'll make a list of stuff. So, having no original thoughts of my own, I did happen upon that there was a list. Someone had done a couple of weeks ago. There was a list of some stuff, board game stuff. Various questions, and they'd given answers to. And now, you know what? I thought, fuck it, I don't have to think for myself. I'll just steal that and I'll make a video about it. Number one on the list is the question is, what's the board game I don't like? Let's start with a negative. Why not? Let's dive in straight away. So one I don't like is Five Tribes. I've covered it before in, I think it was a top 5 board games I fucking loathe. Top 5 Tribes is on there. It is from Days of Wonder. I'm not sure it's in print anymore. The essential idea of it is that there's a game that you're placing area control on, but there's a great big board. There's pieces that look like big cocks. It's just like watching Pam and Tommy, actually. Giant phallic fucking pieces. But the only fucking thing that stands out in my attention of the whole thing, it is just this AP-inducing torture, a fucking turgid, fucking never-ending nightmare. I played it the once. I had absolutely no appetite to play it again because I could just nothing about it enticed me. It was like, oh, we're going to put stuff down and go around. The board state and variables are going to change insurmountably before it gets back to you. And then you have to sit there and go, oh, well, I couldn't make a decision during all that because there was so much shit going on, and now I have to make a decision based on 25, 30, 40, 50 different variables, and if my cock piece is ready to go down. And, yeah, I'd fucking sooner just stroke off that cock and do that. Moving on. The ball game, I think, is overhyped. I'm going to say it. I think it's Scythe. I mean, it's maybe not so much in the hotness now. At the time, it was the second coming of Board Game Christ. It was, I mean, it blew Kickstarter apart. It put Stonemaier on the map. He has done well out of it. It is not, may I be clear, a terrible game. However, number one, for me personally, it isn't what it sets us up to be. It looks like it's going to be this epic 4X-ing kind of steampunky battle war game thing. And it isn't that. It is kind of this Euro resource generation farming thing with some mechs that potentially you can fight with, but then if you do, you're probably going to get penalized for doing it. It's got a lot of buzz at the time for the player boards and a lot of the mechanisms in the game. Well, number one, it lifted wholesale. It basically pilfered the Terra Mystica player boards, just give them a double layer, made them a bit posher and swisher with a nice theming and miniatures. But essentially, it stole that main mechanic and kind of procured it into its own. So it wasn't doing anything new in that regards for me. Likewise with the battle and fight mechanics, it took some of the stuff from Kemet and some of the stuff from Dune, kind of took a little bit of that. I mean, eventually it's the greatest hits of other board games. Embellished, put into a nice, gorgeous theme and that beautiful art across it, wonderful festoon of great components. But essentially, for me, it doesn't do what I want it to do. And it's not that original. It's not that original. So I feel for what it is, it got a massive amount of hype. Yes, it was one of the first early big hits on Kickstarter. Huge Stonemaier thing. Yes, it got a load of hype. And I found ultimately the experience of playing it a little underwhelming. And I've played it a few times since, and I've played the Fenris campaign. All of that, it still leaves me going, it's all right, but I'm not in any appetite to leap at it and play it again. So yeah, I will say Scythe is overhyped. There you go. Fuck you if you don't like that, because, you know, because you're going to protest against it anyway, so I might as well just get it in there now. Fuck you. The underappreciated board game. For me, the underappreciated board game, especially one I own, I think it doesn't get nearly as much buzz or hype in all the chatterings that goes on. And though having said this, it did recently get mentioned by Trey Parker, I think it was, who did a thing with Dice Tower. How did South Park creators end up in Dice Tower? I mean, he's all happy clappy fucking kumbaya, and then they're all about the fucking anal, and I don't understand. Anyway, Australia, the Martin Wallace, a kind of prequel to Study in Emerald, set in Australia, with this Euro engine builder game, but you've got these old gods on the outback of Australia, and you're going out and you're building train tracks and you're fighting them and you're trying to stop them come towards you. It's a bit of that sort of Godzilla vibe to it as it thunders towards you. It's got a lot of variables, it's got a lot of stuff going on, and it's a good theme. It's a great mechanisms. It's a really satisfying play. It's got all the good stuff you want: multi-use cards, it's engine building, kind of dudes on a map styling. It's got a bit of take that. It's got competitive semi-co-op things. You can lose the monsters. There's a lot of good shit going on in there. I mean, Martin Wallace I would almost tag Wallace as being similar to this game, is underappreciated, which is not really fair, but he produces countless solid designs, and he kind of cracks off fucking designs that some designers would love to be able to do, and he just kind of throws them off there and gets them out. Mythotopia comes to mind as another one that would fall into this category. Reprinted today, Mythotopia, with all the bling and polished components and everything else, people will be losing their absolute shit over. Oh, this is amazing. Been around a few years. You can pick it up relatively cheap. The components aren't great. The art design on it isn't fantastic, but it's a solid fucking game. Anyway, Australia. Really good, really good. I think it's wrong. I strongly recommend if you're a fan of any of that sort of stuff. And there was 2 expansions, though they didn't really expand it. I think there's one a solo mode and something else, which kind of. But base game, fine, looks brilliant, underappreciated in my opinion. Should do a bit of that. The board game I love, what should we say? TI4. I love TI4. It does what I want it to do. It is that giant, big, Ameritrash, dice rolling, miniature laden, stupid amount of shit going on. Fills the board, fills the table. Giant space opera board game. You're going to play it for probably 6 to 7 hours, depending on the player count, maybe more. You're going to have an empire. You're going to have all this stuff. If you delve into the stories, then there's all that as well. You can this is just big thematic space opera. You get the politics stage, you've got the Cold War in space almost, you've got battles, you've got wars, you've got artifacts with the expansion being found, all this hidden stuff out there. Lots of just tactics and things, this constant swingy nature of this kind of war zone where you've got these forces building on either side, and then they're kind of circling each other around the table, and you've got underhand political maneuvering, and it is essentially kind of Star Wars, a big space opera on your table. It is a big time sink, but every time you play that game, you're going to come away with a story. There is this big space epic opera thing has happened. Shit's happened. People have got stitched up. There's huge battles, destruction, mayhem, just all the new expansion components add lovely sort of swingy turns to it, and some asynchronous stuff, and some real good surprises and superpowers and stuff. It's gorgeous. It's lovely. It's nuts. It's overdone. It's the epitome of an 80s blockbuster. It's just excessive every way, but by God, it's fun, and I love a bit of that. So there you go. The board game I can play over and over again. Board game I can play over and over again. Dune. I'm going to say Dune. Original Dune from originally TSR. Now it's been reprinted by GF9. Again, like TI4 I just mentioned, it's got this dudes on the map style. It's got all this stuff happening. It's got the Dune theme enmeshed through it. If you love Dune, the Dune board game, that's just dripping in theme. I tend all the components and the actions, the thematics of it, the mechanics, all kind of working in tandem. The asynchronous races, just the betrayal, the politics. It captures what Dune is all about in that ball game. It does such a good job of what it's doing. It could, if it had a much better printed version, it's the one game I regret that it's out, and I love that it's out and I can get it, and it's inexpensive. But it's one of those that, if it had a nice, really gorgeous, posh version of it, I might be tempted by it. It plays well at about 4 players is about the minimum you can do it at. And it can play okay at that, but at 6 players, it absolutely sings. The big problem is teaching those people, and it again can be a long play, but it's a gorgeous game, and I love Dune. I love all of what it's doing, all the mechanisms, all the mechanics of it, all the twists and turns, all the subtleties in that, everything about it. It's a clever fucking game. It's really good, and I could play that again and again and again and again, and I'd play it some more if it was available. So the board game I should play more often, I'm going to pick Lifeform. It came out a couple of years ago now, that same time as Nemesis. It is essentially Alien in a box. It is absolutely wedged with Easter eggs, all that sci-fi 80s, 70s goodness that I love, from TV to movies. Mark Chaplin, the designer of it, me and him are just kind of channeling this certain demographic of this certain old man sci-fi. It's all in there. Some real deep cuts of nerdness. It's Alien. I love Alien. It's one of my favourite movies. The idea of a game of Alien is fantastic. It does that so very well. It has a lot of rules and have a lot of minutiae to it. Again, it kind of has that 80s board game vibe, and that there's lots of moving parts to get that thematics of it, and some of it's kind of throwaway stuff and bits you don't always use, and the end game is a little bit cranky and it doesn't quite work. But that one versus many, someone as the alien tracking you down on the ship, desperately trying to get out, all that stuff is brilliant. Multi-use cards, does loads of stuff I really love. And I wish I'd play it more, so I should play it more, and I will play it more. I hope. I have the solo version. I've never actually cracked open and played, so maybe when I get some time, I'll do that. I wish it could have had really the alien theme on it, or more of the space truckers in space sort of aesthetic to the characters and stuff, because it's kind of a bit sci-fi. The aesthetics and art of the cards and all that, some of it's good, some of it's not so good for me. But overall, that game and everything it's doing is great. The rule book's a tragedy, to be fair. It is one, there is an expansion that Mark found ages ago. I don't know if that's ever going to come to pass. I don't know if there's any appetite for All or Nothing to publish that, because I haven't seen any movement on that for a while. And Mark is working on Where Humans Don't Belong, I think it is, which is his own solo design and solo publish, I believe, but also a solo game of you kind of going off into deep space and encountering lots of crazy shit. And I expect it will be all of that minutiae of rules and craziness that I've come to love and expect from his games. But yeah, Lifeform, it's tricky to get hold of now, but if you can get hold of it, it is, if you love Alien, it is that Alien experience in the box. And I love it, and I wish I played it more, so I should do. So I maybe will. So the game that got me into the hobby, wow, I'm going to go for Games Workshop's Chainsaw Warrior, back from probably late 80s. It's essentially a John Carpenter movie in a box. It's a solo game, you trying to get through this mansion in a 24-hour period. It's pretty much all the Escape from New York vibes of you of this 80s action hero. You've got the watch counting down, you're going to die in a certain period of time. It's got a great Brett Ewing's art and comic book prequely sort of setup you read before you play. It's punishing, it's hard. I don't think I ever actually managed to ever beat it. But it's a great game. It's a comic book as an 80s movie, John Carpenter's movie, as a board game. I remember playing that and just loving it, delving deeply into the Games Workshop stuff they had at the time, like Dark Future, the Judge Dredd board game, all that sort of stuff. It started just giving me that initial sort of grounding, what would later turn into an obsession that would bankrupt me and lose me many spare hours. But thank you, Chainsaw Warrior, for your efforts. Lovely stuff. Thank you. Oh, very good of you. A board game that changed my life. Well, that seems quite deep and quite a meaningful thing to say. I'm going to say Risk Legacy. I was just getting back into the hobby. We were playing as a group, a lot of the crew I still play with to this day. We were just playing a lot, digging out that stuff we had. So Risk was coming out, we were playing a lot of that. And then we played Risk Lord of the Rings because that was available. I dug up Hero Quest, we played a bit of that. Advanced Hero Quest, we tried to play, that made my head hurt. Games Workshop rulebooks, nuts. Then Risk Legacy came up from Rob Davio, and we were playing a lot of Risk. We were back just getting into the board game hobby. We played that and blew our fragile minds. Just Risk itself, this advanced version of Risk, this legacy components, which is something we'd never fucking seen before. Absolutely never encountered anyone. No one had seen that, this kind of ever-evolving, changing board game. With the miss mechanism, it took Risk, which is a basic rudimentary game, and really kind of give it this comic book crazy vibe to it. Lots of surprises and nuts and craziness going on, and just changed my worldview. From that point on, I was in deep. and have subsequently just delved deeper and deeper into that pit of the board game. But Risk Legacy stands out as something that just was like a game changer for me. Got me into the hobby, and it's still fucking good now. And there's another one coming apparently, so that's all right then. Board game that surprised me the most, I'm going to go with Ankh. So it was an instant bang for me because the Mythic trilogy of Lang's games, Blood Rage, astoundingly good fun. Really enjoy it. Heavy metal Viking board game, dudes on the map, good stuff. Rising Sun, I played a few times, never really kind of thing, but I just wanted Ankh just to fill out the thing. I didn't even really fully look. It was a dudes on the map game. It was the Egyptian theming, some cool miniatures. It looked kind of cool. So I got it. We played it, and actually I was astounded at how fucking good it is, and actually how it was totally kind of threw me under a bus almost, of like it wasn't what I expected. Instead of being this kind of sprawling dudes on the map battle game, which it is, it's more like a chess game. It's this really tightly constructed area control-y chess game of every move is really important, and it's less about dudes on the map just fighting. It's this kind of this layering of really simple, to be fair. It's kind of in the last more recent years has kind of gone for these simplified rule sets where there's only essentially 4 rules, kind of, with the minutiae of it kind of giving it depth. So they're kind of easy teaches, but they kind of grow, and lots of variables with the characters you can have and what's on the board, so it changes up every time you play. It's a surprisingly really good game. I say surprisingly really good game. I mean, it's a Lang game. A lot of them are good, but this could have just passed by and coasted on being a dudes on the map, another Blood Rage, another whatever. But it doesn't do that. It does a lot of interesting stuff, and it has that almost abstract game quality to it with all this Ameritrash stylings on top. Throw in the Pharaoh expansion, which really is a fucking essential addition to that game, which just boom opens up all the other features and things it can do, and just really kind of just turns it into this epic fucking thing. I know Lang had tweeted that it was one of his best expansions he thought he'd done. To be fair, once you throw it into the game and actually use it, you see what he was on about. It really it needs to be there. It kind of just completes that whole thing. And it's really great. It's a really solid thing. I love that. I know it got flack for having player elimination in there, but I think it does a very eloquent way of doing that and keeping it in there and keeping that game flowing without having someone sat for 4 hours going, unless they play like a complete dickhead. But yeah, I really enjoy what that is. It's great. It looks gorgeous, but I love that this game isn't what you think it is. It's much more of this abstract, almost Euro-y puzzle to kind of chess-like game to be played out. Not what you think it is. It's good stuff, really good. I love so much going on in it, and so little rules, but so much going on. Yeah, Ankh, I really like that one. My guilty pleasure board game. Well, there's a few on here, but it kind of seems easy enough to do, and the instant one to go to. A guilty pleasure would probably be for me is Talisman. I know people are screaming at the screen now. It is all that is wrong in early board game design. It's a roll and move game. It goes on forever. It's just this massive thing with all the expansions. And I played Talisman 4th edition with all the expansions, and it took us like 8 hours to play it. It was stupid. It's insane. It's madness. It's basic simplified rules of rolling dice and random shit happening you constantly. But you know what? Every so often, you just want to maybe play that sort of game and just enjoy what is happening, and it washes over you, and it's stupid in its thing. I've always meant to pick up maybe one of because they did the Star Wars one and they did something else, maybe the Batman one, and they've kind of simplified down the rule set and tightened up some of it in those games. They have been ones I've been tempted to pick up one of those just to get Talisman back to the table, but maybe at a faster, looser version, play it in an evening type thing, whereas kind of Talisman you can't really do with. So maybe one day I'll look and see. Maybe one day. But yeah, Talisman, definitely a guilty pleasure for me anyway. For a lot of people, just no, not. But where's your heart? Play some Talisman, fuck you. So yeah, the board game that I should have already played, but I haven't, and I'm going to come clean now. Catan. Never fucking played Catan. It's a Euro. It was instrumental in the rise of modern board games as we know it, especially the Euros. Been around a while. It's been re-implemented a few times. Never played it. Never played it. I know vaguely what it's all about. But to be honest, I hit the hobby 10 years ago, kind of came back into the fold. Catan at that point is already kind of an OAP in regards to those regards. And it's a lot of what it's done and does has been obviously done in better in other games, or whatever. It doesn't. It's one of those I don't need to play now. It is board game history. Maybe I should play it. I don't want to own it. I don't see the point in it. There's so much other stuff I'd rather play and do at this point in time. So I've never played Catan. I don't own it. I have no urge or interest to go and play Catan. Because why? Why do I need to? There's other stuff. You're screaming at the screen now or whatever. Maybe the Starfinders I was tempted by briefly, but just I don't need it. So yeah, Catan. There you go. Never played Catan. Who gives a shit? The board game I am most excited for, forthcoming board game I'm most excited for, there's a few scattered around in my brain, but I think the one that clearly stands out there is going to be Frosthaven. I backed it, we're waiting for it. It's going to come out probably late this year now by the looks of it, maybe. Gloomhaven was something that me, Robbie, Tony and Jamie enmeshed ourselves in for about a year, just playing it week after week after week. I understand for some people they don't get it. It is a big, giant, time-sink, epic, dungeon crawlish type thing. It's more of an arena combat thing. I love the card play in it, how that works during a legacy-ish feel to it, but not deep legacy. The fact of unlocking characters and travelling down routes and all that sort of living world. That was kind of there with Gloomhaven. Frosthaven promises so much more of, like, Isaac, the design of it is pulled from video game sort of things he likes. So there's video game RPGs. So you're going to get a world that's now evolving even more, a village that learns from what you do, and you can set up shops in it, and your characters have more of, just basically he's taken everything that Gloomhaven did and fell short in some places for him and other areas, and just woof it all up to 10, even 11, cranking that volume up. Hitting all that stuff that was nearly there in Gloomhaven, or just kind of re-implementing it and polishing it and taking it to the next step. And it's promising at this point in time so much. It is probably going to cock up my board game videos, because essentially when that comes out, we're probably going to be playing that pretty much every week on week on week, and you're just going to get bored to tits of me talking about Frosthaven. It's what's going to happen, I hope. But yeah, amazing stuff. Gloomhaven, I don't think it can be underappreciated for what it had done and accomplished in the hobby. A giant, ridiculous, huge box of stuff, and Frosthaven is bigger still. So we'll see. It's going to be expensive if you haven't backed it. He's already said that the RRP of it's shot up tremendously. That's the gamble you take. I'm sure it'll come down in price at some point. But for me personally, the idea of getting around the table and once again delving into that world and once again experiencing all of what he's trying to do with that just makes, the only thing I'd say is if he could do Mass Effect, if he could take all of what he's learned from this and do a Mass Effect board game using all of this. Just saying, or even a sci-fi, but Mass Effect seems the thing. But if not, Frosthaven I'll take. I'm looking forward to it immensely. It kind of, I keep putting it to the back burner of my brain and just forgetting about it, which is nice. And then there's the day that box is going to arrive and I'm going to lose my shit. And we're doing unboxing and stuff will happen. There you go. So there's a list of stuff, 12 things that I've told you about, stuff that most of it you probably already knew. Some stuff may become new to you. Some of it may even tantalize you into tracking down some of this stuff and playing, which, would be a good thing, I'm sure. There you have it. There's stuff I like, some stuff I don't like, some board game stuff. All manner of goodness has been there, and a list. So there you go. Like, share, and subscribe. Patronus? I don't know. Patreon, us. That's the word I was looking for. Fucking hell. I've been Mike Bean. This has been Who Dares Rolls. This has been a list of stuff on Who Dares Rolls that, we're trying things. Stay safe out there. Look after yourself. Play fucking board games. And I'll catch up with you very soon. Ta!